I'm Tyler, and this all started when I was 24, living back in my hometown of Millwood, Indiana, a nowhere spot with more cornfields than people. Growing up, it was me and my crew, Matt, Sarah, Kyle, and Emma. We were tight, like family, the kind of friends who'd get into dumb trouble together and laugh about it for years. Millwood's the kind of place where everyone knows your business, but we didn't care. We owned those streets, sneaking beers, throwing parties in the woods, thinking we were untouchable. But we weren't. Not after what happened to Matt. That's when it all went to hell. It was a chilly October night, right after Halloween, when Sarah called me, her voice shaking so bad I could barely make out the words. "Tyler, it's Matt. He's gone." I thought she meant he'd skipped town or something. Matt was always pulling stunts, like the time he convinced a cop to let him off for speeding by cracking jokes. But then Sarah started sobbing, and I caught it. They found him in his trailer. He's dead. I froze, my phone pressed to my ear, standing in my kitchen with a half-eaten pizza on the counter. "What do you mean, dead?" I asked, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. She didn't know much, just what the cops told her. Matt's boss at the auto shop called for a wellness check after he didn't show up for 2 days. The police kicked in his door and found him in the living room, sprawled on the floor. They wouldn't let anyone see the body, not his parents, not Sarah, nobody. But Sarah overheard one of the cops talking outside the station, probably thinking no one was listening. Matt's arms were bent backward, like someone had snapped them at the elbows. His spine was twisted, curved in a way that didn't make sense, like he'd been wrung out like a towel. Worst part? His eyes were gone. Not cut out, not stabbed, just gone, like they'd never been there. I felt sick, my knees wobbling as I leaned against the counter. "No way, Sarah," I said. That's not real." But she just kept crying, saying the cops called it suspicious, but had no leads. No forced entry, no fingerprints, no nothing. Just Matt, broken in ways a human body shouldn't be. I told her I'd come over, but I just sat there for a while, staring at the wall, trying to wrap my head around it. Matt was the guy who'd talk his way out of anything. Who the hell could do that to him? The funeral was a week later, small and quiet, at the only church in Millwood. Most of the town didn't show. Matt wasn't exactly a model citizen, with his DUIs and loud mouth. But we were there, me, Sarah, Kyle, and Emma. Sarah was a mess, her mascara smudged, but still sharp, like she was holding it together by sheer will. Kyle kept pacing, tugging at his bald cap, muttering about how it didn't add up. Emma just stared at the casket, a cheap wooden one Matt's mom picked out, not saying a word. The priest droned on about peace and eternal rest, but I wasn't listening. I kept glancing at the back of the church, half expecting Matt to stroll in, cracking a joke about how lame his own funeral was. Once, I thought I saw a shadow move near the door, just a flicker, but when I blinked, it was gone. My head was playing tricks, had been ever since Sarah's call. After the burial, we stood in the church parking lot, a cold wind cutting through our jackets. Nobody wanted to leave, like going home would make it real. Sarah lit a cigarette, her hands shaking, and started talking about the time Matt tried to do a backflip off a picnic table at the lake and ate dirt instead. We laughed, but it felt hollow, like we were forcing it. Kyle kicked a pebble, his voice low. "This is messed up, man. Who does that to someone? Twists them like that?" Nobody answered. What could we say? We just stood there, the silence heavy, until a guy in a gray coat walked up. He was maybe 50, with tired eyes and a clipboard, looking like he'd seen too many days like this. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Detective Warren. You're Matt's friends, right?" We nodded, and he went on. "I know this ain't the best time, but I need to ask a few things. Sometimes funerals jog memories, stuff you don't think matters till it does." Sarah exhaled smoke, crossing her arms. "Go for it. We already talked to the cops." Warren nodded, flipping open his clipboard. "I know, just covering bases. Did Matt have any enemies? Someone who held a grudge, maybe from way back? Could be something small, something he didn't even realize he did." We looked at each other, but Kyle shook his head. "Nah, man. Matt was a clown, but everybody liked him. He didn't make enemies, not like that. Anyone he pissed off by accident?" Warren pressed. Ex-girlfriend, co-worker, anybody? I shrugged, my stomach twisting for no reason I could name. Not that we know of, I said. Emma and Sarah nodded, but I could tell we were all uneasy, like we were missing something. One last thing, Warren said, his tone too casual. Does the name Cody mean anything to you? My chest tightened, like someone had punched me. I glanced at Sarah, she'd gone pale. Kyle's jaw clenched, and Emma's eyes flicked to the ground. Cody who? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just Cody, Warren said, watching us close. No last name yet. Mean anything? Nope, Sarah said, too quick. Doesn't ring a bell. Warren stared at us, like he knew we were full of it, but he didn't push. He handed me his card, said to call if we remembered anything, and walked off to his sedan. The second he was gone, Kyle muttered, Cody freaking Wheeler. The name hit like a brick. Cody Wheeler was a kid we knew back in middle school, a scrawny guy with a stutter and cheap clothes who never fit in. We weren't saints back then, hell, we were little shits. We picked on him, not just teasing but straight up cruel. It started small, stealing his lunch, tripping him in the hall. But one day in 8th grade, we took it too far. Matt dared us to lock Cody in the old storage shed behind the school after hours. It was supposed to be a joke, something to laugh about later. I held the door while Kyle and Matt pushed him in. He was screaming, banging on the wood, begging us to let him out. We just laughed and walked away, thinking he'd get out eventually. He didn't. The janitor found him the next morning, curled up, shaking, his voice gone from yelling. Cody never came back to school after that. Word was his family moved, or he got sent to some facility. We never faced any real consequences, school swept it under the rug, and we moved on, growing out of our jerk phase, or so I thought. But hearing his name now, after Matt's death, it felt like the past was clawing its way back. That's a coincidence, right? Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's gotta be. Kyle snorted, but he didn't sound convinced. Some rando named Cody? Sure. But why's this detective bringing it up now? Sarah stubbed out her cigarette. We're not seriously thinking Cody Wheeler came back and, what, killed Matt? That's insane. Is it? I asked, my mouth dry. You heard what they did to him. That wasn't normal. We stood there, the wind picking up, nobody saying what we were all thinking. If Cody was back, if he was tied to this, what did that mean for us? We split up, promising to talk later, but I could tell we were all freaked. I drove home, locked my doors, and sat on my couch, staring at the TV without turning it on. My mind kept replaying that shed, Cody's screams, the way we laughed. I thought we'd buried that guilt years ago, but now it was crawling out, and I had a bad feeling it wasn't done with us. The days after Matt's funeral were a blur, like I was walking through fog. I kept expecting my phone to buzz with one of his dumb texts, like, yo, Ty, let's hit the bar, but it stayed quiet. Too quiet. I couldn't shake Cody Wheeler's name, the way it hung in the air when Detective Warren said it. It was like opening a door I'd nailed shut years ago, and now something was creeping through. Sarah, Kyle, Emma, and I didn't talk much after the parking lot, but I could tell we were all spooked. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was crashing at my apartment, a rundown one-bedroom above a pizza joint in downtown Millwood, when Kyle called me 3 nights later. It was past midnight, and I was half asleep on the couch, some true crime show droning on the TV. His voice was tight, like he was trying not to lose it. Tyler, you awake, man? I need you to come over. Like, now. What's up? I asked, sitting up, my heart already picking up speed. Kyle wasn't the type to freak out. Guy once broke his arm skateboarding and laughed it off. But he sounded rattled. Just, get over here, he said. It's bad. I'll explain when you're here. I grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and drove to Kyle's place, a duplex on the edge of town where the streetlights barely worked. The whole drive, my mind was racing. Was it Cody? Was it something else? The radio kept cutting out, static hissing like whispers, and I swear I saw something move in my rearview mirror, a shadow, gone when I turned. I told myself it was nothing, just my head messing with me, but my hands were sweaty on the wheel. Kyle was waiting on his porch, pacing, a cigarette burning down to his fingers. His cap was pulled low, but I could see his eyes darting, like he was expecting something to jump out of the dark. "Took you long enough," he muttered, flicking the cigarette into the grass. "Dude, what's going on?" I asked, stepping onto the porch. The air felt heavy, like before a storm, even though the sky was clear. He didn't answer, just nodded toward the door. "Inside. You gotta see this." His living room was a mess: beer cans, pizza boxes, a cracked Xbox controller on the coffee table. But what stopped me cold was the wall above his TV. Someone had scratched a word into the drywall, deep enough to tear through the paint: Cody. The letters were jagged, uneven, like they'd been carved with something sharp. My stomach twisted, and I felt that same tightness from the funeral, like the air was closing in. "When did this happen?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Found it tonight," Kyle said, running a hand through his hair. "Came home from work, and it was just there. Door was locked, windows too. I checked. Nobody's been in here, Ty." I stepped closer, my sneakers crunching on some spilled chips. The scratches looked fresh, the edges still crumbling. "You call the cops?" He shook his head, fast. "Hell no. You think I'm gonna tell some ghost from middle school broke in and wrote his name on my wall? They'll think I'm nuts. Or worse, they'll think I did it." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to call it a prank, some kid screwing with him, but the way the letters were carved, too deep, too angry, didn't feel like a joke. "You think it's him?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "Cody?" Kyle's jaw clenched. "I don't know, man. But I ain't slept since the funeral. I keep hearing stuff, scratches, footsteps, like someone's outside my window. Last night, I woke up, and my front door was open. Just a crack, but I know I locked it." I felt a chill, remembering the shadow in my rearview mirror. "You tell Sarah or Emma?" "Not yet," he said. "Didn't want to freak Em out till I was sure. But we gotta talk, all of us. This ain't a coincidence." We sat on his couch, the TV flickering static now, and called Sarah and Emma. Sarah showed up first, her hair in a messy bun, looking like she hadn't slept either. Emma came 20 minutes later, her eyes red, clutching a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. We showed them the wall, and Sarah cursed under her breath. "This is messed up," she said, crossing her arms. "You sure you didn't piss off some tweaker or something?" Kyle glared at her. "I didn't do shit, Sarah. This is about Cody. You know it is." Emma sank into a chair, her voice quiet. "We don't know that. Could be someone screwing with us, someone who heard about what we did." "Who?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "Nobody knew about the shed except us. We never told anyone." The room went silent, the weight of that day pressing down. I could still hear Cody's screams, the way he begged, his fists pounding the shed door. We were kids, dumb and cruel, thinking it was just a laugh. But now, sitting in Kyle's trashed living room, it didn't feel like a kid's mistake anymore. It felt like a debt. "We need to figure out what happened to him," Sarah said finally. "After he left. Where he went, what he's doing now. If it's really him, we need to know." "How?" Emma asked, her voice shaking. "It's been, 10 years? He could be anywhere. Or dead," Kyle finished, his voice flat. "And we're being haunted by his pissed-off ghost." Sarah rolled her eyes, but it didn't land like her usual sarcasm. "Don't start with that horror movie crap. Let's be real. We check records, talk to people. Someone's gotta know something." I nodded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'll hit up the high school tomorrow. Mrs. Carter's still there, the secretary. She might remember Cody, maybe have his old file or something." "I'll check online," Emma said, pulling out her phone. "Social media, public records, whatever. If he's out there, I'll find him." Kyle and Sarah agreed to ask around town, discreetly, old teachers, neighbors, anyone who might have known Cody's family. We were grasping, but it was better than sitting around, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Before they left, Sarah grabbed my arm, her voice low. "Ty, you see anything weird, you call me. Right away." "Yeah," I said, but my mind was already elsewhere, stuck on that word carved into Kyle's wall. I didn't sleep that night. Kept my lights on, my baseball bat by the bed, jumping at every creak in the apartment. Around 3 a.m., I heard it, a faint scratching, like nails on wood, coming from the living room. I grabbed the bat, my heart pounding, and crept out. Nothing. Just my couch, the TV, the pizza box still on the counter. But when I checked the front door, the deadbolt was unlocked. I'd checked it twice before bed, I was sure. The next day, I dragged myself to Millwood High, a squat brick building that hadn't changed since we were kids. Mrs. Carter was at the front desk, same gray perm, same coffee mug. She squinted at me over her glasses. "Tyler Brooks? What brings you back?" "Just catching up," I lied, leaning on the counter. "Doing a project on old classmates. You remember a kid named Cody Wheeler? 8th grade, maybe?" Her face tightened, just for a second, but I caught it. "Cody," she said, her voice careful. "Quiet boy. Left mid-year, I think. Why were you asking?" "Trying to track him down," I said, keeping it casual. "Got any old records? Like where he transferred?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Those files are archived, Tyler. I'd need a reason to dig them up. You know how it is, privacy laws." I pushed a little, but she wouldn't budge, just gave me that look like she knew I wasn't telling the whole truth. I left, frustrated, and texted the group, "No luck at school. Carter's cagey. Anything on your end?" Emma replied first, "Found a Cody Wheeler on Facebook, but it's not him. Wrong age, lives in Texas. Still looking." Sarah and Kyle came up empty too. No one they asked remembered Cody or his family. It was like he'd vanished after that shed, like we'd erased him. That night, we met at Sarah's place, a small house she rented near the grain elevator. We were comparing notes, trying to stay calm, when Kyle's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then went white. "Guys," he said, his voice cracking. "Check this." He held up his phone, showing a text from an unknown number. Just one word, "Cody." My blood ran cold. Before anyone could speak, Sarah's phone pinged. Same deal, unknown number, one word, "Cody." Then Emma's. Then mine. We stared at each other, the air thick with panic. "Who's doing this?" Emma whispered, her hands shaking. I opened my mouth to answer, but a loud crash cut me off, coming from the backyard. We froze, listening. Another crash, like glass breaking, then a low, guttural sound, almost like a growl. Sarah grabbed a kitchen knife, her face hard. "Stay here," she said, heading for the back door. "Screw that," Kyle snapped, grabbing a fireplace poker. We followed her, hearts pounding, into the dark. Sarah's backyard was small, just a patch of grass and a rickety shed. The growling stopped, but the air felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing on my chest. Sarah's flashlight swept the yard, landing on the shed. The door was open, swinging in the wind. Inside, something glinted, something metal, jagged, like a broken blade. And scratched into the shed's wall, fresh and deep, was one word, "Cody." That night at Sarah's place, standing in her backyard with that growl echoing in my ears, I felt like we'd crossed into something we couldn't come back from. The word "Cody" carved into the shed door, the jagged blade glinting inside, and that heavy, animal-like air, it was like the world was closing its jaws around us. Sarah's flashlight shook in her hand, the beam jumping across the yard. Kyle gripped his fireplace poker like he was ready to swing, and Emma was pressed against the house, looking like she'd bolt any second. I couldn't move, my sneakers glued to the grass, my heart slamming against my ribs. "What the hell was that?" Kyle hissed, his voice holding steady but his eyes wild. Sarah didn't answer right away. She stepped closer to the shed, knife raised, and nudged the door wider. The hinges screamed, and I flinched, expecting something to lunge out. Nothing did. Just the dark, empty space, the scratched word, and that blade, a rusted machete, half buried in the dirt floor, like someone had swung it and left it there. "Nobody's here," she said, but it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. "Just some psycho screwing with us." "Psycho who knows about Cody," I said, my mouth dry. "And has our numbers." Emma's voice cracked. "We need to call the cops, guys. This is way past weird." Sarah spun on her, her face tight. "And tell Em what, Em? That a kid we bullied a decade ago is leaving us love notes? They'll lock us up for being paranoid." "She's right," Kyle said, lowering the poker but not relaxing. Cops didn't help Matt. We gotta figure this out ourselves. We went back inside, locking every door and window, but it didn't feel safer. Sarah's living room was cluttered, old magazines, a dead plant, a couch with a ripped armrest, but it felt like a cage now. We sat in a circle, phones on the coffee table, those Cody texts staring up at us. Nobody wanted to say it, but we were all thinking the same thing: Matt's death wasn't random. Whatever got him was coming for us. We need to know what happened to Cody, I said, breaking the silence. Not just where he went, but what we did to him. Like, really did. Emma hugged her knees, her voice barely audible. We locked him in a shed, Ty. 4 hours. He was screaming, and we just left. Yeah, but after, I pressed. He didn't just move away. Something broke him. We broke him. Kyle snorted, but it wasn't his usual cocky laugh. You think he's back, snapping spines and carving his name? Come on, man. That's movie shit. Then explain this, Sarah snapped, pointing at her phone. Explain, Matt. Explain the damn shed. Kyle didn't answer, just stared at the floor, tugging his cap lower. We argued for a while, going in circles. Call the cops, don't call the cops, tell Warren about Cody, keep it quiet. Finally, Emma stood up, her face pale but set. I'm going home, she said. I can't do this tonight. I need to sleep, or I'm gonna lose it. Don't, I said, standing too. Stay here. It's not safe. I'll be fine, she said, grabbing her keys. My dad's got a shotgun. I'll lock up tight. Just call me tomorrow, okay? We tried to stop her, but Emma was stubborn when she got like that. She hugged Sarah, nodded at me and Kyle, and left. The door clicked shut, and it felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to run after her, but Sarah grabbed my arm. Let her go, Ty. She needs space. Kyle crashed on Sarah's couch that night, and I took the floor, a blanket and a kitchen knife within reach. I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, listening for that growl, for scratches, for anything. Around 4 a.m., my phone buzzed, a text from Emma, made it home. Locked up. Talk tomorrow. I exhaled, relieved, and texted back, cool. Stay safe. But the relief didn't last. The next morning, Sarah's phone rang while we were choking down coffee. It was Emma's dad, his voice so loud I could hear it from across the table. Sarah, is Emma with you? She's not in her room, and her car's gone. Sarah's face drained of color. No, she left last night, said she was going home. You sure she's not there? She's not here, he shouted, then broke into a sob. Her bed's empty. There's blood in the garage. We were in Kyle's truck in 5 minutes, speeding to Emma's house, a small ranch-style place on the other side of Millwood. My hands were shaking, my mind screaming, not Emma. Not her. When we pulled up, the street was crawling with cop cars, lights flashing, neighbors gawking from their lawns. Emma's dad was on the porch, head in his hands, a cop trying to calm him down. Detective Warren was there, standing by the garage, his face grim. Sarah ran up to him, Kyle and I right behind. What happened? She demanded. Where's Emma? Warren looked at us, his eyes heavy. We don't know yet. Her car's missing, and there's signs of a struggle in the garage. Blood, broken glass. We're searching now. Blood? Kyle choked out, his voice breaking. How much? Warren didn't answer, just shook his head. You kids shouldn't be here. Go home, let us handle this. No way, I said, stepping forward. She's our friend. You gotta tell us something. He sighed, lowering his voice. Look, I'll level with you. This looks bad, and it's too similar to Matt's case, same kind of violence, no forced entry. We found something else in the garage, scratched into the concrete. He paused, watching us. The name, Cody. My knees buckled, and Sarah grabbed my arm to keep me upright. Kyle cursed, turning away, his hands clenched. This can't be happening, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. It's him, isn't it? Warren's eyes narrowed. You know something about this Cody, don't you? Spill it, now. We didn't have a choice. In a shaky rush, I told him about Cody Wheeler, middle school, the shed, how we locked him in, how he vanished after. Sarah filled in gaps, her voice flat, like she was confessing to a priest. Kyle stayed quiet, staring at the ground. Warren listened, scribbling in his notebook, his face unreadable. "Why didn't you mention this before?" he asked when we finished, his tone sharp. "'Cause it was years ago," Sarah said, defensive. "We were kids. We didn't think it mattered." "It matters now," Warren said, snapping his notebook shut. "I'll pull records on this Cody Wheeler. If he's out there, we'll find him. But you three need to stick together, stay somewhere safe. Whoever's doing this isn't playing." We nodded, numb, and he walked off, barking orders at another cop. Emma's dad was still on the porch, sobbing, and I felt like throwing up. We'd let her go home alone. We'd let this happen. Back at Sarah's, we were falling apart. Kyle punched a wall, splitting his knuckles, yelling about how we should have stopped Emma. Sarah chain-smoked, pacing, muttering about how Cody couldn't be doing this. It didn't make sense. I just sat there, my head spinning, picturing Emma's face, her quiet smile. Then my phone buzzed, a voicemail, from an unknown number. My hands shook as I played it. It was Emma's voice, faint, gasping. "Tyler, help, it's here." Then a scream, cut off by static, and a low, wet growl, like the one in Sarah's yard. I dropped the phone, my heart stopping. Sarah and Kyle stared at me, wide-eyed. "What was that?" Sarah whispered. I couldn't answer. I played it again, the scream ripping through me. Kyle grabbed his keys. "We're finding her. Now." "No," Sarah said, grabbing his arm. "We can't just run out there. It's what it wants." "Then what?" Kyle shouted. "Sit here till it picks us off." "Emma's alive, Sarah." "We don't know that," I said, hating the words. "That voicemail, it could be a trap." Kyle glared at me, but he didn't argue. We were stuck, paralyzed, the growl from the voicemail echoing in my head. That's when Sarah's TV flickered on by itself, static hissing. We froze, watching as the screen cleared, showing a grainy image, a dark figure, hunched, standing in a field. Its head tilted, like it was looking at us, and scratched into the dirt at its feet was one word: Cody. The TV screen went black, but that image of the hunched figure burned into my brain, its tilted head, the word Cody scratched in the dirt, like it was staring right through us. Sarah's living room felt like a tomb, the air so thick I could barely breathe. Kyle was gripping his fireplace poker, his knuckles white, and Sarah's knife shook in her hand. My phone was still on the coffee table, Emma's scream from that voicemail echoing in my head. We were out of time, out of options, and whatever was hunting us was done playing games. "We can't stay here," I said, my voice hoarse. "It knows where we are. Where the hell do we go?" Kyle snapped, his eyes darting to the windows. "Emma's gone, Matt's dead, and this thing's got our number, literally." Sarah stubbed out her cigarette, her face hard but her voice cracking. "The shed. Where it started. If this is Cody, that's where it's tied to, right? We end it there." "That's insane," Kyle said, but he didn't sound sure. "You wanna walk into its turf? You got a better idea?" Sarah shot back. "We're sitting ducks here." I nodded, my stomach twisting. The shed behind Millwood High, where we locked Cody all those years ago, felt like the source of this nightmare. Maybe facing it there was suicide, but running wasn't working. "Let's do it," I said. "But we're not going empty-handed." We raided Sarah's house for anything useful: knives, a crowbar from her garage, a can of lighter fluid and matches. Kyle grabbed a flashlight, and I took my baseball bat, the same one I'd kept by my bed since Matt died. We piled into Kyle's truck, the engine roaring as we peeled out, Millwood's dark streets blurring past. Nobody spoke, but the tension was choking us. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting that figure to lurch out of the shadows, but it was just empty road. The high school was a ghost town at 2 a.m., the parking lot lit by a single flickering streetlight. The shed was still there, tucked behind the gym, a rusted, sagging shack we'd barely thought about since 8th grade. We parked 100 yards away, killed the engine, and sat there, staring at it. The air was cold, my breath fogging, and I could hear my pulse in my ears. "You sure about this?" Kyle asked, his voice low, the poker across his lap. "Nope," Sarah said, clutching her knife. "But we're here." We got out, our footsteps crunching on gravel, the flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The shed looked smaller than I remembered, its door half off its hinges, the wood splintered. But the closer we got, the worse it felt, like the air was pressing down, heavy with something angry. I smelled it too, faint but sharp, like rot and metal. Sarah reached the door first, crowbar raised, and pushed it open. The hinges groaned, and the flashlight lit up the inside, empty, just dirt and cobwebs, but the back wall stopped us cold. Scratched into the wood, over and over, was Cody, the letters deep, overlapping, like someone had carved them in a frenzy. Below it, smeared in something dark, blood, maybe, was a handprint, too small to be an adult's. My knees buckled. "That's his," I whispered. "From back then." Kyle's flashlight shook. "How's that still here?" "It's been 10 years. Before Sarah could answer, a low growl rumbled from the dark, not from the shed but behind us. We spun around, the beam catching something in the trees beyond the school, a figure, hunched, moving fast, weaving between the pines. Its limbs were too long, its head jerking like it wasn't screwed on right. My heart stopped, and Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Run!" Kyle yelled, but there was nowhere to go. The figure was cutting us off from the truck, its movements unnatural, like it was gliding over the ground. We backed into the shed, slamming the door and wedging the crowbar against it. The growling got louder, closer, and then, bam, something hit the door, hard enough to splinter the wood. "Hold it!" Sarah shouted, leaning against the door with Kyle. I gripped my bat, my hands slick with sweat, as the thing outside pounded again, the crowbar bending. The air stank now, that rot metal smell choking me, and I heard it, a voice, faint, layered under the growl, like a kid crying. Why? "Cody," I whispered, my voice breaking. "We're sorry, man. We were kids. We didn't mean." The pounding stopped, and the silence was worse. Sarah's flashlight flickered, then died, plunging us into dark. My breath hitched, and I fumbled for the matches, striking one. The tiny flame lit Kyle's face, pale and wide-eyed, and Sarah's, her knife raised. Then I saw it, behind them, in the corner of the shed, a shape unfolding from the shadows. It was Cody, or what was left of him. His skin was gray, stretched tight over bones, his eyes gone, just black holes leaking something thick. His arms hung too low, fingers twitching, tipped with jagged nails. He tilted his head, like he was listening, and that voice came again, soft, broken. "You left me." Sarah screamed, swinging her knife, but Cody, or whatever it was, moved faster, blurring across the shed. It grabbed her wrist, twisting, and she dropped the knife, crying out. Kyle swung his poker, but it passed through the thing like smoke, and he stumbled. I raised my bat, but Cody's head snapped toward me, those empty eyes locking on. My match burned my fingers, and I dropped it, the dark swallowing us again. "Tyler, do something." Kyle shouted, but I was frozen, Cody's voice in my head now, not out loud but inside, like a knife in my skull. "You laughed. You left me. You laughed." I saw flashes, his face pressed against the shed door, his screams, our sneakers walking away. Guilt choked me, worse than the smell, worse than the fear. I fumbled for the lighter fluid, spraying it blindly where I'd seen him. "Cody, stop!" I yelled, striking another match. "We're here now. We're sorry." The match flared, and I saw him, inches from Sarah, his hand around her throat. I threw the match, and the fluid caught, flames erupting across his arm. He shrieked, a high, rattling sound that tore through my brain, and let Sarah go, flailing as the fire spread. "Out!" Kyle yelled, kicking the door open. We stumbled into the night, Sarah gasping, her neck bruised. The shed was glowing now, flames licking the walls, Cody's shrieks echoing. But he didn't burn like he should have. He staggered out, fire eating his skin, and lunged at Kyle. I swung my bat, connecting with his shoulder, and it felt like hitting stone. He turned, those empty eyes on me, and I saw it. Not just Cody, but something else, something older, darker, wearing him like a mask. Sarah grabbed the machete from the shed, the one we'd seen before, and swung it into his back. He screamed again, collapsing, the fire roaring higher. We backed away, the heat searing my face, watching as Cody, or the thing, writhed, its body folding inward, cracking like ice. The shrieks faded, and it crumbled into ash, the flames dying out, leaving just smoke and that rotting smell. We stood there, panting, the shed half-burned, the school looming behind us. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Kyle whispered, "Is it over?" Sarah touched her neck, wincing. "I don't know. I didn't either." The ash was still, but I felt it, that weight, like something was still watching. We limped back to the truck, drove to Sarah's, and sat in her living room till dawn, too scared to sleep. Nobody called the cops. What would we say? That we burned a ghost? That our guilt came back to kill us? The next day, Warren showed up at my apartment, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. "Found Emma's car," he said, his voice heavy. "In a ditch off Route 9. She's gone. Same as Matt. And there was a fire at the school last night. You know anything about that?" I shook my head, my throat tight. "No, sir." He stared at me, like he knew I was lying, but he didn't push. "We pulled Cody Wheeler's records," he said. "Kid went to a state facility after you guys did what you did. Had a breakdown, never really recovered. Died 6 years ago. Overdose." My blood ran cold. "Died?" Warren nodded. "Yeah. So whoever's doing this, it ain't him. Stay safe, Tyler." He left, and I sank onto my couch, my head spinning. Cody was dead. Had been for years. So what the hell did we fight in that shed? Sarah and Kyle didn't take it well. Kyle split town a week later, crashing with a cousin in Ohio, saying he couldn't stay in Millwood anymore. Sarah stayed, but she's different now, quiet, chain-smoking, jumping at shadows. I'm still here, working at the gas station, checking my locks every night. The cops never found Emma's body, just her car, with Cody scratched inside the door. Warren's case is cold, no suspects, no answers. I don't sleep much. I keep seeing Cody's face, those empty eyes, hearing his voice, "You left me." I think about what we did, how we broke him, and what answered when he begged for revenge, like Danny in the sample, cursing his bullies till something listened. Was it Cody's ghost? Something else, using his pain? I don't know, and that's the worst part. Last night, I heard scratches outside my window, faint but deliberate. I didn't look. I can't. But I know it's not over. Whatever we woke up in that shed, it's still out there, waiting. And I'm the last one left.